Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
Hi, good evening. I need to every time when I come on, and because I like to have a pitchy voice when I'm like, hi, but sometimes I have to make sure like my throat is clear. Maybe I should practice. Hi, happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Man Up Thursday. So listen, me and the judge, we go live every Monday and Thursday, right? It's the Man Up show. Judge Joe Brown is, the main attraction for those shows. So I tried to do it Man Up podcast on Mondays and then just regular Man Up. It's just Man Up show on Mondays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Soon, I will be going back to doing Dana with the Data live shows as well. But every Monday and Thursday, you will find Judge Joe Brown and me here on the Real Dana YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. How's everybody doing this evening? Of course, we have to wait for the judge to come on. He has snail Wi-Fi, right? So he should be coming up shortly. First, let me say condolences to O.J. Simpson family, and also condolences to DJ Mr. C family, because DJ Mr. C passed away yesterday, and he was a popular and very talented New York City DJ on the radio and in clubs, even on television. Star from the Star Report, he's spoken about him several times, and he said he's a very nice man in real life and very professional. And he passed away. He was 57 years old. That was yesterday. And today, we got the news, O.J. Simpson, the juice, he died of prostate cancer at the age of 76. He didn't die today. Actually, his family said it was yesterday on the 10th he passed away. They released a statement early this morning. So RIP. Death should be celebrated because we're all going to die, but it should be a rejoice. It shouldn't be something somber and sad, and we shouldn't be scared of it, right? Where do we get this whole thing? Where did that come from, to be scared to die, to be scared of death? Maybe we should examine that later on in the show. I am going to put a poll because I think I'm going to open up the phone lines tonight, because I did say every Thursday I will open up the phone lines. So I will open up the phone lines during tonight's show. Please hit the like button. She said death is not a celebration. Why not? Especially if you were religious and you believe in Jesus Christ our Lord, and you believe there's a heaven. If you believe there's a Valhalla, so if you are a believer, then you should celebrate death, because that person's soul is ascending up to the heavens. But why are we're sad because they're no longer physically here with us, but we have to think higher. But I honestly, maybe if we have time, maybe we'll touch on it during the call sessions. Why death should be celebrated, or we should not be afraid of it, at least. But yeah. Also, we got to talk about Fulton County crisis. That's what I'm calling it, Fulton County crisis. Fannie Willis, not only do she needs to be locked up, she needs to be disbarred. That whole county needs the federal government to come in and do a examination, a forensic examination of all the corruption. Another inmate died at Fulton County Jail. I had several guests come on here to talk about how they were harassed and targeted by the South Fulton city of South Fulton police department, Sheriff Labat. They're all corrupt. I'm having another guest come on Monday, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper and have an understanding. Why are the people in position of power, why they have so much power, and it was really passed down from the civil rights activists' legacy. So we're going to get much deeper into Fulton County on Monday with the guests, but I do want to highlight current news that is going on in Fulton County by way of Fannie Willis. And thank you to a stand-up man, outstanding man, Mr. Harrison Floyd, HW. We had him on a guest on Monday. That was a great show. And so I want to give a special thank you to Mr. Harrison Floyd. We support you. We stand by you. And go check out the statesmanproject.com. It's in the description. And I am going to pin it in the chat. Also, I have not been promoting a website, therealdananetwork.com, and I need to start doing that. Please go to therealdananetwork.com and sign up to the mailing list. I want more and more and more people. I want thousands of people to sign up to the mailing list. I upload archives, and you pay for those. I upload shows that we do here on YouTube, things that I edited out. So go to the website, sign up to the mailing list, and also have another channel called the Dusty Chronicles, which is totally different from what I do here. Is talk about relationships, because every Saturday night I do a show with Steve the Dean from the Man Mindset, and we talk about relationships, and it gives me a break for talking about current events and politics, right? So I created another channel called the Dusty Chronicles, and I upload clips from that show. So go and subscribe to the Dusty Chronicles and have a laugh. It's all fun and games. Talk about dating, relationships, crack jokes and stuff like that. All right. So I see the judge. Hi.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, my dear?
I'm doing Charlie.
Good Thursday evening and all of that good stuff.
Okay, so how do the English say it? It was like, oh, I'm doing well, or do they say
quite well? Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay, I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking.
Jolly good, old fellow.
Yeah, jolly good. That's what it is.
Jolly good.
Jolly
good.
Guys, hit the like button.
Marty's doing quite well down here.
Yeah, I can't do I have to practice Australian accent.
Well, I had my executive producer the first year I had to show you from Australia, Peter Brennan. Marty, we're going to do the show today. You ready to get on it? Went down, and I was in Sydney for a whole month for the 2000 Olympics. So it was interesting where Peter was talking normal and everybody else was talking like him, and we were talking strange. Anyway, it was fun. He was an interesting guy.
Well, I want everybody, please, guys, hit the like button.
He's still breathing, last I checked.
Hit the like button, share the video. If you would like to send in a question or comment, it's easy if you do it super chats, because I can't really pay attention too much in the chat. And so welcome everybody. So let's get into the first topic, right? I want to go to Fulton County. We get a lot of intel daily. Thank you, Miss Pamela. We get a lot of intel daily. Thank you, LA Pink. Gotta have her back on, because it's a lot of shady stuff coming out of Fulton County. And let me just say this. If you are in where you live at in your county and you feel as though there's corruption going on, send me an email and we'll get you on the show to talk about it, because Fulton County is not the only county in this nation that got a lot of corruption. But the reason why we're talking about Fulton County, because Fannie Willis, honey, she done turned the criminal justice system upside down. I wanted to bring this up. Trump co-defendant threatens legal action against Fannie Willis over alleged phone recording. Oh, no. I think we did talk about that. That was
our gentleman.
Yes. That's the wrong one. Because we covered that already. It was this one here. It was this one. I pulled up the wrong one. Yeah. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis wants disqualification ruling to stand. The Georgia Court of Appeals has until mid-May to decide whether it wants to review the disqualification ruling. The Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis is asking the Georgia Court of Appeals to let a ruling stand that allowed her to remain on 2020 election interference case involving former President Donald Trump and other co-defendants. After months of questioning, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee ruled in March that Willis could remain on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade stepped down. The disqualification hearing occurred after Wade and Willis' romantic relationship came to light. Following the order, attorneys for the defendants started a process to appeal the ruling. So Willis filed a motion in response to the defense team's request for interlocutory review.
Interlocutory. In other words, I told you that would happen sometimes in these cases like this where everything gets locked up until the appellate matter gets resolved. The case doesn't go on.
Right. So she's arguing there are no grounds for the Court of Appeals to grant a review of McAfee's ruling.
Actually, he did something very interesting, Judge McAfee. I told you about it then when I said read between the lines. In other words, he denied the defendant's motion to kick Fannie off of the case if she got rid of Wade. That's part one. But what he put in there about her lying, he called her mendacity, which means lying. And he talked about her disbelief, her lack of credibility, and everything else. He set that case up for the appellants to proceed with a great chance of success. So, in other words, it's like you're the judge. It's like at this point, something stinks to high heavens. Let me kick this upstairs to the next pay grade. I'm setting it so they get a chance to look at it. Okay, guys, there are 9 of you, maybe 3 of you on the initial panel. Get at it. This is what it is. So that's how you do these things. You don't have to get it that way. It's sort of like when you got a football game and all of the referees and the umpire, they get together and they review the replay tapes to see what's going on after maybe somebody threw a flag down and somebody wants over. Let's see what happens. This case is so messed up. It's like if it goes all the way to trial and you've got a finding by the trial court that the prosecution lied, they deceived the court, they were engaged in chicanery, fraud, they violated their ethical standards, and the list goes on for a long way. It looks pretty bad. And the other thing, too, is he offered to gag the prosecutor so she'd keep her mouth from running off at churches and stuff and tainting a jury panel hopelessly, which she still hasn't stopped, even though her state Democratic Party asked her to shut her big mouth. She's still running it.
Well,
it's like, what are you going to do? You've got probably one of the most glaring cases in the country, and you've got such an enormous store of misconduct building up. What are you trying to do? It becomes obvious that a lot of people who originally were on your side say, wait a minute, something else is going on. This just isn't right.
I want to play this clip.
What is this?
County District Attorney's Office wants the Georgia Court of Appeals to let a judge's disqualification ruling stand.
That's right. So this ruling is what allowed DA Willis to stay on the election interference case against former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants. London Live's Grace King, she has been digging into this case for us, and tonight she explains what this could mean.
On Tuesday, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis defending a trial court ruling that lets her stay on the election interference probe.
Whenever a petition is filed by a defendant, the district attorney's office has the right to respond, and that's all they did today.
Former President Donald Trump and several of his co-defendants want Willis off the case and the indictment dismissed altogether. That's why they filed a request for interlocutory review with the Georgia Court of Appeals.
If they choose to hear it, they then would likely hold oral arguments as to why the law was improperly applied. That could take several more weeks, possibly even a month.
If that happens, Emory Law School professor John Acevedo says the appellate court wouldn't look at new facts or new witnesses.
So whatever witnesses said, they're kind of stuck with. And we'll now look to simply ask the question, was the law applied properly in this instance? And that, since it becomes much more of a legal argument.
In her filing, Willis explained why she felt that legal argument wouldn't be necessary. She wrote the Court of Appeals should deny that request because the present application merely reflects the applicant's dissatisfaction with the trial court's proper application of well-established law to the facts.
Court of Appeals very rarely overturn trial courts on these matters. We could see that in the district attorney's response. She pointed out that deference is usually given to the trial courts unless there's clear and erroneous error.
The court has until mid-May to decide whether to review McAfee's ruling. In Fulton County, Grace King, 11.
You know what? See, the tragedy to this whole thing is the woman's so stupid to not realize that she ought to bail for self-preservation reasons. She's gotten in so deep in the goo right now that she's in not only danger of losing her law license, she's in danger of being put in jail herself. So the more this stays on the record, the worse it gets. And she apparently doesn't have the sense through her narcissistic view of things to shut her mouth. It's like, you've got a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used in evidence against you. Shut up.
Right. And
with this fool.
well, Mr. Harrison Floyd, he filed a motion against her for the wiretap.
Oh, yeah. And then that, too. She was trying to get cute with this. See, in Maryland, it's against the law to tap. Well, not a tap. It's against the law to record a phone conversation or a conversation without permission of both parties. Mammy Fanny went ahead and did it. And then she published it. And that broke the law in Maryland. So since it was across state lines, now you got a situation where there's an interstate warrant demanded right here. She's broken the law by her own admission. Yak, 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 yak. Shut your mouth. She didn't.
Right.
So,
So
now she's got a situation where one of her defendants has a strong case on her. In fact, a stronger case against her than she has against him. It's like, what's the matter with you?
I don't know if she even answered to the subpoena with the congressional committee with Jim Jordan. Didn't he subpoena her? So it's a lot of legal things that's against her, right? That is going on. At the same time, you still supposed to be trying to prosecute not just Trump, but 19 other defendants. You know, and you want to stay on this case.
And see, two of these defendants, they're lawyers. And what they did was so out of line that it really wasn't part of what everybody else did, but she included it. And they took a plea bargain rather than getting more serious offenses that would have come out what they did independently of the other group. So you've really got 17 defendants in here. And you've got weak cases against them, and you're trying to get in the back door with some lowered standards of proof because you're alleging essentially a conspiracy and RICO activity. But the problem is proving it. it's kind of hard to claim somebody is engaged in RICO activity, which is supposed to be criminal activity, as a primary source of income, when what they're engaged in is ordinary politics. And essentially what you have here is an allegation that someone who is dissatisfied with the outcome of a political proceeding is saying, hey, something's wrong here, and demanding an investigation, further proceedings. And what does the First Amendment say? The right to assemble and petition for the redress of grievance shall not be abridged. And this is essentially a petition for redress of grievance that has resulted in some mammy fanny bozo up here coming up with a set of criminal charges because somebody just followed what they have a right to do under the law. And the other thing is their language that's supposed to be so intimidating. That's kind of like listening to these goddamn fools you have right now who say, oh my God, it was inappropriate the way he spoke to the child. Well, what did he say to the child? You better get in there and do what I'm telling you to do. Well, okay, what did you say wrong? Well, that's it. Have you lost your mind, fool? And now we are dealing with a fool. Look at what she's doing. What did I say? You get a willing wench. If she does well in the bed, put her on the third floor bed wench. When she gets to know everybody and she starts getting gray at the roots, then you make her a mammy and put her in charge.
You don't think that, you always use that term. You don't think that you constantly saying that is going to give the wrong impression of Black women? You use
it should of this kind. See, this is a scoundrel. Look, this, what I'm saying is not an impugning of women because they are Black. It's impugning a disgrace to anything like this. If she were male, it would be subject to castigation. This is a disgrace. And that's all it is to it. And unfortunately, the disgrace fits into a pattern that's several hundred years old. I cannot get it out of my head when 50 plus years ago, I was working with a DC think tank, and I'm reading these slave pamphlets about using these same methodologies to get Black mammies to sit there and control the slave populations on large plantations. That's what you're seeing right here. The same party that ran things back then, the Democratic Party, is doing it now, and they're picking mammies to run minority communities and trying to run everybody else. Stacey Abrams, Mammy Fanny here,
Letitia James,
Beetlejuice 2.0, aka.
I mean, and you do have this the
Lori
mayor
Lightfoot,
Fulton,
the whole 9 yards. You even get the ones with swinging dicks like Al Sharpton and what's his name, Cory Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Feel, I guess, with special taste.
Yeah. Speaking of Al Sharpton, I'm gonna bring that up a little bit later. He got his National Action Network conference is going on. It started yesterday.
I'll talk about him. He's nothing but a pimp. I don't know if he's got a pulpit, but he's a pimp. I talk about him in the same sentence I talk about Mammy Fanny here.
Well, let's swing real quick to Trump, right? Because this came out yesterday. It says President Trump drops bombshell letter from Stormy Daniels. I am denying this affair because it never happened. So this is by, what is this? The gatewaypundit.com. So it says this afternoon, President Trump shared an image of a 2018 letter from Stormy Daniels on his Truth Social account. Above the image of the letter from the porn star turned darling of the Democrat Party, President Trump wrote, "Look what I just found. Will the fake news report it?" So I guess it was a letter. It's a 2018 letter that Stormy Daniels allegedly sent, said, which should be the end of yet another lie that was told over and over again by the media in their effort to destroy him. Official statement of Stormy Daniels, January 30th, 2018. So, you know.
And wait a minute, excuse me. Let's talk about some law. She got paid to not embarrass him. She was a successful blackmailer. So she ought to be sued. She ought to be put in jail. That's a felony. So you see what I'm talking about? If I talked about this person here, would that be impugning all women because you get a scoundrel here, a blackmailer?
Well, is she a bad wench? Stormy Daniels?
What is her job?
And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because you have
a job. What do you call it?
Well, the reason why I'm bringing her up is because you have the Jean Carroll, right, who won that lawsuit out of New York against Trump for the same thing, basically accusing him of and I don't believe it, you know, and I'm not saying that I don't believe, you know, there are women who are assaulted, right? But
yes, women get done wrong, and it's bad to do women wrong. But just because one woman gets done wrong, that doesn't keep a scoundrel, scallywag, scut, whatever it may be, from coming up later on and falsely claiming it to get advantage. We got all kinds of pimps and hustlers, from the pulpit all the way to the pimp mobile. You name it, we got them. And when I'm talking about third floor bed wench, look at what we've heard. What is Miss Mammy supposed to be? She's supposed to allegedly been dealing with the previous DA, and she said it wasn't going to happen under her administration. Now we find out from her daddy, who I know personally, we find out that she was shacking up there with the DJ who had some kind of government job during the day. And then at the same time, she's sneaking and creeping out with Attorney Wade while she's doing that. And then what is she doing? Hustling everybody. And look what she's trying to do to the gentleman we had on our show. He's minding his own damn business, a former Marine, served the country, trying to do something for noble purposes. And she's sitting up there with us scoundrel wench self, trying to sit there and put him in jail because he upsets her little narcissistic plan that she's going to bring her little snake charming head up in there and start running stuff. Hey, baby, it don't work like that. And by the way, somebody needs to look into Fulton County and see what the hell's going on. Look at that idiot they have for a sheriff up there. This fool filed in domestic claims court in the domestic violence court. He's the sheriff. He went and swore out a warrant against a citizen for criticizing him for misuse of public funds. If that isn't a ridiculous mess, it's a punk play. You the sheriff and you scared of a 70-year-old woman who is scaring you because she's allegedly accusing you of misuse of public funds. And you got to go pull out a punk warrant to charge her in domestic violence court with endangering and stalking you because she won't stop making the accusation. Hell, did you grow up in America, fool? You never heard about politics and the Bill of Rights and the political process and due process of law? What's wrong with you?
Speaking of Nathan,
I forgot, but by the way, that's discriminating against black men. No, I don't call that black men. I just call that punk action.
Speaking of Nathan Wade, because you call Fanny the bed wench, third floor bed wench. So what would you call Nathan Wade? Because it came out this week that he's now pleading that he's living in poverty, trying to cut his alimony payments to the ex-wife after losing.
Hey, cheaper to keep her. Hey, it happens. Been through that. Shit happens, man. It is life. Get over it.
He's pleading poverty.
Get over it. You didn't get a goddamn concern. You got $720,000 for fronting off on some bullshit.
Right.
This matter isn't even be set for trial, and you and your hustling lady friend sitting there conning the state of Georgia, allegedly. You know what that game was? They got in there and they was playing at it, and they got befriended. She got upset with him because he said she could make him a sandwich, you know. And she's talking about she got her own thing, and they had this little bit where everything he submitted, she was okaying, so the money goes back. And he was giving her a kickback, so which is illegal, by the way, allegedly. And then the other alleged thing was all that money coming in that they are ripping off from the people of Fulton County. And the sheriff, I guess, is allegedly getting his little tootsies burnt because he's got his foot in that hot water. And it was a way to launder the stuff back and forth between the head DA in the district and some boyfriend, and they could launder the money and do all these cash transactions like nobody was going to find out about it. And just she was such a damn fool, she had to put that hand on him. I'm going to testify. And then get her butt up in there and like, fool.
It's
you
funny,
know,
every time you
what's the
start
matter with you?
every time you start talking about Fanny, honey, your connection, you know, it sounds like you in the Matrix.
I know it is. It's like, see, what is going on is I've been doing this for more than a half century. And it is embarrassing that probably the worst dumb crook move you've ever seen when it comes to the Fifth Amendment has been committed by the district attorney of a large urban district in a large, mostly black city in the United States of America, Atlanta. It's like embarrassing. What the hell is going on? It's like, is this white supremacy or black stupidity? You know, we were going to do a show on that this week for Twitter, for X Space. It is like you get a chance to run stuff. You're in charge. You don't have anybody to answer to. You are a constitutional officer. You just stand for election every 4 years. And you whining about white supremacy and there's nobody you have to get an okay from. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, we're going to stay on this.
Especially when it turns out you're just whining about it because you got caught being a crook, allegedly.
Well, let me say this, because I did say last month will be the Fanny train. We stand on the Fanny train, honey, going forward until she's off this case or until the case is done and everybody is not guilty. So we are still standing on a Fanny, smoking on a Fanny pack. So it says text message from Fannie Willis' office shows investigator hitting on witness. Text messages shown in court reveal that an investigator with Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis' office hit on a witness while working on a case. So this is the YSL case, right? The RICO trial.
Yeah, he's trying to get him some.
So it says, several co-defendants continue on. New details emerge about the conduct of an investigator for Willis' office. While questioning a female witness identified as A. Bennett on the stand, an attorney for Williams asks about messages that the witness received from a county investigator named Hamilton. We haven't talked too much about this RICO case. And honestly, this is another debacle, right? Because I do have a clip from the courtroom where the judge is yelling at another attorney in the middle of this trial. But it says here, text messages was one from Hamilton that read, "Hit me up if you're bored later. We're not going to talk shop." Asked what it was the investigator wanted to talk to her about. Bennett told attorney Keith Adams.
I guess these folk can't separate business from pleasure, can they?
Right. So this is an investigator.
What they call this? The DA's office or the BC office? DA's office or BC office? The booty call office?
Right. So it's like, what
like
the
booty call, baby? What's the matter? You're in charge of this.
So the investigator was hitting on one of the witnesses, trying to get some ass.
I mean, Are there any standards in this office? I guess not. And wait a minute, it ain't like it's a dude doing it. And look who's in charge. And you talking about this
And look
dude
who's
trying to
standing
get up
behind
on this woman? Look what she's doing.
Right. I don't know. Well, we gotta have LA Pink back
This
on.
gets more embarrassing as it goes on. So now we're going to get some fools calling up probably or sending little chat room bullshit about, well, you wouldn't, men do it all the time. Oh, God. See, there you go. Anybody doing this, that's wrong. You don't do this.
Right. You don't. So it's bad enough that inmates are their constitutional rights.
Well,
Yes.
again, back to this point question.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this.
Sex in America these days.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this. Is the Fulton County Jail, yes, they're inmates, they were locked up. A lot of them weren't even charged yet, but their constitutional rights is being violated. And you have a lot of one too many of these inmates coming up dead, being stabbed or what have you. Now they have the inmates on a lockdown, I think for 16-hour days now. I guess to suppress the violence a little bit. But so Monday we have a guest, Mike, coming on, and I want to try to get Ellie Pink back on as well. And
let me stop you.
Wait, one second before I forget. When we had Star last week on the show, after that show, several people sent me emails, and I do want to say thank you to everyone that sent me emails telling their story about Fulton County, and I'm going to have those emails for Monday. I will not say your name because they want to be anonymous. Go ahead.
Okay, let me say this on your same point. There was a sum of $7+ million sent to the Fulton County District Attorney's Office to catch up on the backlog, because they've got a rule that says a person is supposed to be indicted within 45 days of being incarcerated on a charge if it's a felony. There are a lot of people in there that have not been indicted. There have been people in there several years where nothing has been done on an initial case, let alone an indictment being returned. The $7+ million was supposed to be to catch up. We now find that for her little personal political future, instead of the $7 million being used to deliver justice to the people of Fulton County, it was for her own selfish purposes, out of which there is a growing sense that a lot of what you were seeing between her and Mr. Wade was the result of an embezzlement attempt, allegedly, to try and get some of this $7.5 million put in her pockets and use it for the distracting purpose of being a good flunky for the Democratic Party so she could get rid of Mr. Trump instead of letting the people of the country decide whether they wanted him as their chief executive. And then we've got so much ignorance out there in the public. We assume publicly, if we listen to the mainstream media, that because somebody was indicted or a charge thrown out there, that they've actually done something wrong. Well, let's put it this way. It develops that out of the populations of American penitentiaries, federal and state, it seems that just slightly more than 2% of the people in there were found guilty by jury. So all of those people who went to trial, I tried a bunch of them as a defense lawyer. I presided over a bunch of them as a criminal court judge. All of those who were found not guilty, even though they were indicted, that's supposed to be something we forget about. So because you got some crooks that you're seeing, some fools, some narcissistic little scoundrels, and we have several of them who have ambitions to be something other than a DA, we get a miscarriage of justice.
What else did she want to be? You said something.
Well, to take a look at it. Have you ever heard of Thomas Dewey?
No.
He prosecuted Lucky Luciano, the gangster who turned certain aspects of organized crime into a business. He set up the syndicate. So Dewey prosecuted Lucky Luciano, tried to get his buddy Meyer Lansky, couldn't, but he wound up being the governor of New York and twice a candidate for U.S. president. So this person, I guess, is trying to move on up and do that. Whether it's Letitia or Fanny, they have ambitions, and another somebody like what's the one we just mentioned?
Stacey Abrams.
Stacey Abrams, she didn't make it because she just failed miserably, got her ass whipped. And we've got the other one over here.
You Lightfoot, but I don't think
Beetlejuice, that's the way I keep thinking of her. She didn't make it because she was an abject failure. She got the job, but she blew it so badly. And then Stacey Abrams, she was hollering about the election got stolen from her worse than Trump was. So nothing happened to her. It looks kind of hypocritical. And by the way, she lives in the same district as Mammy Fanny here. So why didn't Mammy Fanny go get on her buddy here?
Right. Well, listen, like I said, we're gonna talk. We still staying on the fanny pack. We're gonna follow up more what's going on in Fulton County on Monday.
And it's a damn shame what that woman has done to impugn the name of justice in America.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So
started on her. I've been polite and withdrawn and just reserved in my commentary on her.
No. It's great commentary because listen.
No, I've been reserved.
Well, when are you not going to be reserved? So when you want to let loose with it, you know?
I'm being reserved.
Why?
Because it might be a negative upon the criminal proceedings that get filed against her.
If what? If you say
no,
something.
What I'm saying is if justice is what it's supposed to be, Miss Fanny's going to be looking at some criminal charges herself, and I wouldn't want to taint or influence negatively a potential jury pool.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't think it's going to get that far for it to be a jury.
I do.
I think the case will probably most likely get thrown out.
No, not if it's a federal case. And not see, here's the thing. The next president will get to appoint a U.S. attorney for the area, and that U.S. attorney can convene a grand jury, and the grand jury can listen to the evidence to see if there's probable cause that a crime was committed, and then somebody will stand trial. Or see, the other thing too, since it's on a national level, guess what? It doesn't even have to be in Georgia. It can be in Alabama someplace. It could be in North Carolina someplace. It could be in Arkansas someplace.
I want to move on from Fulton and Fanny.
Miss Fanny would be slapped for trial because she did something on a national level. And
all right,
wow,
so let's move on. I want to go to Chicago. And what came out of Chicago a couple of days ago, in wake of a fatal police shooting of Dexter Reed, local advocacy groups call for changes to traffic stops. Give me a second.
That's that thing you sent me.
Yeah.
55's Courtney Sis tonight has been pouring through those reports, is here with who is getting pulled over, and Courtney, the reason why.
That's right, Steph. And according to Chicago police data, they conducted over 500,000 traffic stops in 2023. In the 11th district, where the Dexter Reed shooting occurred, made more traffic stops than the number of drivers that exist in that district. Last year's data also shows it's impacting Black and Latino drivers at a disproportionate rate. Law and advocacy groups we spoke to today are calling for change.
Roll the windows down. Roll the window down, man. Roll the window down. What are you doing?
20 seconds after this traffic stop, gunfire erupted, injuring a Chicago police officer and killing the 26-year-old driver, Dexter Reed. Chicago Office of Police Accountability Chief Administrator Andrea Kirsten said twice Tuesday the stop was because of a seatbelt violation.
The purported reason for the traffic stop was that Mr. Reed was not wearing a seatbelt.
But a letter sent to CPD Superintendent Larry Snelling, obtained by NBC5 Investigates, shows Kirsten wrote she had serious concerns about the validity of the traffic stop, stating it's uncertain how the officers could have seen the seatbelt given their location and the dark tinted windows.
We don't think Chicago police should be pulling people over for not wearing a seatbelt.
Kara Hendrickson is the executive director of Impact for Equity, a law and policy center aimed to reduce the size of Illinois' criminal legal system. They sent us a report last week surrounding CPD traffic stop data.
The report shows an overwhelming number of pretextual traffic stops conducted by the Chicago Police Department.
And their data, obtained through a Freedom of Information request filed with the Chicago Police Department, also shows it's disproportionately impacting minority drivers.
Black drivers in the city of Chicago, for example, are 6 times more likely to be stopped than white drivers.
Latino drivers were 2 times more likely to be stopped. Chicago police issued the following statement in response, saying officers only conduct traffic stops when they have probable cause or reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime, including traffic violations, has been committed, is being committed, or is about to be committed. These stops are not conducted based on race or any other protected class. The report shows officers conducted over 500,000 traffic stops in Chicago last year, yet indicates an overwhelming majority of them don't lead to a ticket or arrest.
Less than 4% of stops done by CPD result in even a traffic ticket. The comparison statistic in the city of New York, for example, is about 80%.
But internal emails also obtained in their FOIA request shows in 2020, CPD commanders were pushing district chiefs for more traffic stops as a tool to combat violence and lessen shootings. But advocacy groups like Impact for Equity and their partner Freedom Move want to end pretextual traffic stops, which occurs when an officer pulls someone over for something other than driving habits. In October, they called on the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability to end stops for low-level offenses, including not wearing a seatbelt.
Utilizing pretextual traffic stops to address minor licensing violations and equipment problems is just a dangerous way to create danger rather than addressing true crime and safety issues in the city of Chicago.
And the Chicago Police Department also tells me under the consent decree, all officers do go through implicit bias training. Allison.
Courtney, thank you.
All right. So I want to just do a quick background, right? Because it says it took less than 20 seconds for a traffic stop to turn into a fatal police shooting in Chicago late last month. Okay, so this wasn't recent. The shooting, which occurred March 21st, on West Ferdinand Street in Chicago, police officer wounded and 26-year-old Dexter Reed dead, with more than 90 rounds fired in less than a minute. According to the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, police initially pulled over Reed because he was allegedly not wearing a seatbelt. However, a letter obtained by NBC5 Investigates via FOIA request shows COPA Chief Administrator Andrea Kirsten expressing serious concerns about the validity of the traffic stop. We don't think Chicago police should be pulling over people should be pulling people over for not wearing seatbelts. The group sent NBC Chicago a report last week surrounding CPD traffic stops data. The report shows overwhelming number of pretextual traffic stops, and we just went through that. But the thing is, why did they shoot at this man? Because they're saying that he shot at the cop and actually hit a cop with a bullet, wounded a cop first. And that's why they shot him, and they shoot to kill.
Okay, let me break this down. One thing, it's kind of hard for somebody moving down the street at 38 plus miles an hour with these dark tinted windows for somebody to actually see an unfastened seatbelt. All right? It's obviously, and she uses the correct term, pretextual. Now, a lot of states to stop this from happening, and Illinois could do the same thing. I know Tennessee and a lot of the areas surrounding Tennessee have these laws, is you cannot issue a citation for a seatbelt violation on a pretext. There has to be some other cause for the stop. Speeding, failure to signal, something like that. Failure to stop fully for a stop sign. Illinois could end this. The other thing is a deeper point that I saw in this, particularly with the female who's got the body cam going. She's freaked out. And what that comes from is, oh my God, we got to protect the children from bullying. So, all throughout human history, male and female, children have had to deal with the male female version of bullying as they grow up. That's part of being human. And in the process of dealing with it, by the time you are a grown person, you have demonstrated or not demonstrated to your own or to other people's satisfaction a certain level of personal courage and bravery, and you have become comfortable with coming into adversity with hostile humans. All right. Now, these cops are just like anybody else for the most part. Most of them have never been in a fist fight by the time they get on the police department. So when they get in their first confrontation, physical confrontation, it's completely novel. But now they've got a gun on their hip. They've got somebody likely to be armed. They've got a class situation, a gender classification problem, a race classification problem. You've got all kinds of things, and the hostility builds up all out of control. The body language is excessively negative, it's combative, and nature takes its course and it gets out of hand. And the fearful start using excessive force under the circumstances. When I grew up in South Central LA, although we didn't call it that then, the person you had to worry about doing you some serious harm was the biggest punk, the scariest one out there. He's the one that would pull a knife and suddenly stab somebody, or pull a gun and shoot you, or do something like that, or something atrocious. And everybody, well, what's going on, man? Did you see what you're going to do with it? Well, dude wasn't doing anything, man. Why you do that? See, because he's scared. So scared people do some desperate things sometimes. So it's not just the defendants, it's the cops, and sometimes it's both of them. So the signals across. Now, the next thing that I saw when looking at this is, okay, irrespective of whether or not it was a pretextual stop, you do get one wounded cop. And the implication is that the cop was wounded from the gunfire that was elicited from the now deceased suspect. If that's the case, then they're not going to sit there and be brave. You haven't tested them to see if they were brave. They haven't tested themselves in life to see if they're brave for the most part. You get a mess. Next thing is what I did see was overreaction by quite a few of the police. The particular woman that you get the popular view from
She was
her
screaming. She was like, ah, and running.
not only that, she's got her pistol up and she drifts the muzzle of her pistol across the backs of at least two of her fellow police. She doesn't have muzzle control on the damn thing, which is a violation of safe firearms practices. That was another mess waiting to happen. So you get a lot of panic that you see in this situation. And I have, even around here in Memphis, I've stopped stuff out on the street. And hey, stop. Who are you? Oh, Judge Joe Brown. Yeah. This from the police and the suspects. Say, back down. What are you doing? You're sending some very aggressive body language signals to each other. What's the problem?
And I'm not saying, for me personally, I'm not saying that, he was innocent or whatever, because he had a gun. He probably, well, in the state of Illinois, they do have, you could carry your
You need
firearm,
he is
but you
right
need a
there. You're
permit.
gonna
But
need a
we
little
don't.
bit more
I'm
than you
assuming that.
decide to carry.
Right. I'm assuming that he had possession of a gun illegally, but so
You
it's,
don't
yeah.
have to just assume that right now. We don't know whether in this area he had his carry permit. And
Right.
Chicago isn't part of an area where you can have constitutional carry. In other words, if you can buy it, you can carry it without anything else.
Right. So the thing is, so what I'm saying is, when they pulled him over, if you pull him over and then you say, well, we pulled him over because he wasn't wearing his seatbelt, but why did you need all those police officers? Why are you pulling out your gun if he was not wearing his seatbelt? If you're not wearing a seatbelt, you pull someone over, you give them a ticket, and then you go on about your day.
Yeah, and
why? Wait, let me say this. Why are you asking him to step out of the car if it was for just a seatbelt violation? You never asked him to step out of the car.
well, here's the thing. Usually they do ask, step out of the car. That's a safety protocol. In other words, you've got somebody posted at the front of the car, somebody at another angle. So when they see the person get out of the car, they can keep this guy under control and frisk him. But
okay,
what?
I was never asked that. I was
I'm going to go
asked, let me
someplace
see your
else.
driver's license and registration.
No, but I'm going someplace. It's not inappropriate to ask them to do that. That's a safety method for the police.
With
And
your
it's
gun drawn?
taught. Yeah, it's taught. But
Pointing at?
yeah, but hold on. Let me say this. That's not really what the issue is here. You saw it with Diddy, where what is said as to why we have this contact, whether it's execution of a search warrant or something else, or for an arrest or for a pullover for a traffic stop. You don't get all of these squad cars involved for a pretextual stop based on seatbelt violation. What is going on is that in and of itself is a pretext because something else is happening that the police don't want to reveal to somebody else. For example, we talked about Diddy. Diddy had 2 homes searched, one in California, one in Florida. But on the same lot that the Florida property was located that got searched, he had another mansion. So they only searched one mansion. You got Homeland Security doing the search, but Homeland Security is not associated with the subject matter detailed in the press as to why the search was conducted. The FBI is, but they didn't conduct it. They were only there. You've got a situation where in Chicago, you've got to stop supposedly on the pretext of a seatbelt violation, and you need all of these squad cars to be brought in there so that you can do a seatbelt stop. It sounds like, to me, there was a drug situation here or suspicion, and somebody does not want it well known that this is why this guy got pulled over, because that may break a search. Now, I know that Chicago having a big problem with organized street crime. There are all sorts of things going wrong here. You still have a residuum from the IC rail yard break-ins a few years ago where those boxcars full of armaments were hijacked, and Lori Lightfoot with her ignorant ass sat out there trying to finance street organizations to improve relations in the city, wound up inadvertently, perhaps, financing some street gangs who financed the acquisition of the stolen goods. So there's a possibility it could have involved that. All kinds of things going on here. And Chicago is a distribution hub, naturally. So do we have gang distribution of drugs here?
Yeah.
We have all sorts
a
of things.
migrant crisis going on.
Yeah, because this just right. Yeah, migrant crisis.
Which increased the gang and drug activity even more.
See, a shot was fired. All bets are off. You got some panicked police out there who fire 90 to 100 some shots, which is rather ridiculous under the circumstances. It was out of control. So I get back to, how did all these squad cars get there? Was this a roadblock situation? What's going on? See, and then there you have another problem here, which is editing information is supposed to control the situation and provide a way of preventing large scale panic or tipping folk off. But the way it's done so awkwardly winds up
Let me
making the
ask you a
situation
question.
worse.
Before I play the video of the mom, let me ask you this question. If he never had the gun, if he never shot at the police officers, right? And they pulled him over for the seatbelt and for if they pulled him over for that and forced him out the car, do you think, with everything you just laid out, right? Do you think that he would have had, first of all, he would have been alive most likely, but you think he would have had a case to sue the Chicago Police
No,
Department?
he wouldn't have, because what's going to happen, you got a whole lot of witnesses who are going to sit there and have a swearing match in a courtroom as to why they pulled the guy over. See, the first thing I'm looking at is, I know what the deal is with tinted windows. Those windows were darker than the tints permitted with the Department of Motor Vehicle, DOT, Department of Transportation. I didn't see a DOT sticker in there, and they're small, but if you know where to look, you can pick them up. I may have overlooked it. If you've got a DOT sticker, which is federal, then the police can't say crap about your windows are too darkly tinted. But I'm looking at a set of windows that are a little bit too dark for regulation. One of the reasons being is that you can't see what the hell's going on in there. You cannot see under those lighting circumstances as they appear to be from the video, several sources of video to see in there, which would destroy this thing. We saw he didn't have a seatbelt on. Well, how did you do it? Do you have a roadblock, which they sometimes set up to check drivers?
What he should have did was just comply.
Just comply. So the point comes in, why not? And then if he says he was scared, well, kill cowards. You know, that's what happens. A coward dies many deaths. Often he dies. I don't want to hear that I punked out, so I got scared. So it's a traffic stop, so you're going to shoot it out with the police. Well, you know, maybe the police are lying, but it did seem from looking at this thing over and over and over again, there was gunfire coming from the car. So what are we doing here?
I want to play, this is Dexter Reed's mother blasting the Chicago police for killing her son. Appears to think that Reed's death is the police fault. So I want to play this video clip.
It's a pain that manifests in memories and pain that manifests in despair.
They took my son away from me. He ain't got that no more. I don't know what I'm going to do without him.
That cop there is about lost it. And look, if you see over in the corner, see the two cops in front of her? She's covering them with the muzzle of her weapon. So, okay, what happens? Is this pretext? Did he actually fire a shot, or is this just BS on the back end to cover stuff? Other thing is it's just a goddamn seatbelt. What's the problem? Get your ass out.
Yeah, so
you may get a case for carry concealed, but I mean, yeah, or leave the guy, put it under the goddamn seat. You get out of the car, and you know, at that point, they can search you or pat you down.
Well, this is the thing, because
protection.
I watched the extended body cam of the female police officer, and so she went over to the officer that was wounded. I think it was two officers that were wounded, and then she went over to Dexter Reed. He was laying down on the ground. You might as well just say dead, face down, and they pulled his hands behind his back to handcuff him. And I was waiting for them to pull the gun out or roll him over, but then she walked away. So I'm like, where is the gun? I wanted to see, because if he had a gun and he shot the officers, because someone shot him, the
Yeah,
officer.
well, understand the rules arose long before anybody invented a camera, long before anybody invented a damn cell phone with a camera.
Well, listen, Sergeant, I'm not going to show the video. You could go on X and just type in Dexter Reed, and it's up there. And I'm actually going to edit out the little snippet that I saw of the shooting, because YouTube is just funny like that. But yeah, but anyway, I wanted to
a further comment. You just talked on something. It's all in the news. You can get it everywhere, but you can't put it on YouTube because it's offensive.
Well, not that it's not so much that it's offensive, it's just that it's not humans that review everything. So if it's in a context of us, let me just say this, if this is in a context of us talking the way it is now, that's fine. But sometimes if it's a machine, they don't know that, which means,
Look, if something shoots you, cuts you off, breaks your rights down, and throws them out the window, does it make any difference if it's human or a machine?
No, I'm
we
talking
live
about
in the United States of
the
America. YouTube handles trillions of communications a year. It impacts every one of the 50 damn states in the United States, all of the territories and protectorates, all of the interests of the United States and a lot of the rest of the world. It indulges itself in interstate communications. It uses the electronic spectrum, which belongs to the people of the United States. It's licensed under FCC, and it gets away with this, and they can impugn on your rights under the First Amendment, the most sacrosanct amendment and the most important one, to make sure that we still have some sort of semblance of free governance, and it can tramp on them roughshod with no consequence. Oh, hell no. See, something is way wrong here. But, I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I'm not saying anything something wrong didn't happen. I don't know, because it does happen from time to time. I'm just not satisfied with what I saw. I observed a whole lot wrong. And what you just said is badly wrong, too. It's not your fault. It's just that this is the United States of America, but we're getting treated like we live in the 1930s in Germany, over Deutschland, yeah? And we have that kind of thing going on. Fascisti. Or
All
we
right,
live in Italy.
I want to move on to the main topic of O.J. Simpson. And then I want to talk about O.J. Simpson, and then I want to open up the phone lines. But first, I want you guys, please hit the like button. We have over 1,000 people watching, and only 600 likes. So can everyone just tap the thumbs up? It's quick and it's free. So O.J. Simpson,
he succumbed to prostate.
Passed away. He passed away on April the 10th, and from prostate. He succumbed with his battle with cancer. So on April the 10th, our father, Arthur James Simpson, succumbed to his battle with cancer. He was surrounded by his children and grandchildren. During this time of transition, his family asks that you please respect their wishes for privacy and grace. The Simpson family, right? So before we get into the acquittal, please speak a little bit to his legacy. He was born in San Francisco, California, right? The projects, I believe. And
he was a hell of a football player.
Yeah. And
I had the privilege of meeting him personally when he was still in college under a number of circumstances. He was not a bad guy. I'll just comment on this. 4 of the 5 chief detectives wound up doing penitentiary time in California.
No, Judge, I want you to talk about his legacy first before we get into
but
So
That's
just
sort
no,
of
just talk about OJ
okay.
the juice first.
Well, okay. OJ orange
Why did they
juice.
call him the juice?
OJ is abbreviation of orange juice, the juice. Black folk didn't call him that. That was a white thing. He was very popular. Everybody loved him. And I found it interesting that somebody who was beloved by many as a nice guy all of a sudden became the face of villainy. And I think it had a lot to do with a lot of things besides this case that they had on him. So, I mean, if you want to see what he's about, just look at anything from car advertisement commercials or rental commercials to insurance commercials to sitcoms. You know, he was the guy, and he was a hell of a football player.
Did
Played
you
for
ever meet him?
USC. What's that?
Have you ever met him?
Yeah, I told you I knew him.
No, did you tell the audience? You could tell me.
Yeah, well, I know, but see, there was a guy named Linda Taylor went to law school with me, went to UCLA with me as an undergrad. She came out of Compton High School, and she wound up getting with a guy named Lloyd Ferguson, who was a mathematician at UCLA. They got married. Lloyd had a rambling 5-bedroom house out in Santa Monica, and it was literally on the beach. You walked out of the house, there was the sidewalk, and then there was the sand. So we used to hang out at Lloyd's place. We'd drop by there after law school, and OJ and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Big Lou that is, the basketball player, would come by, and everybody would come hang out. They'd play bid whist, poker, you know, talk smack, and plot what we were going to do to improve the black situation in the Southern California school system, meaning higher education at that time, since everybody was going to college rather than going to the Nam. So that's where I knew him from. He was a straight up guy, easy to deal with, pleasant, personable. Now,
so fast forward, right? Because this is Shane, with everything he accomplished his professional career, he's only known for the black man that was acquitted, right?
Well, yeah, and then let's talk about that. I'm going to be very candid and very brief about it. Other than this sleazeball Nancy Grace doing the American public the total disservice of indefensibly coming up with a fiction about what she was reporting in this case so she could assure her career, I looked at the entirety of the evidence in this case, both from having recorded every scrap of the completely televised proceedings, including those things that took place outside of the jury's presence, and also because of my connections, winding up some years after the fact, getting a complete tour of the evidence room and looking at everything in evidence, also knowing the guy that manufactured the gloves in question, also knowing somebody that the state called supposedly as an expert on knife killing. He was my brother, the late Grandmaster of Martial Arts, Sensei Guru, Clifford Stewart, late of Los Angeles, California. The thing that strikes me about that case is their lack of evidence. I don't really consider what they had against him to even amount to probable cause. I do find that there was probable cause to have indicted Furman, at least as an accessory. I do call attention to the fact that wrapped up in the Rampart scandal, Ramparts being a precinct of the Los Angeles Police Department, the 4 senior detectives involved in this case all got jail time, The only one that escaped was the fifth person, Furman, who left the police department and escaped. All of them went to the penitentiary for planting evidence against quite a number of other defendants, and 128 men and women had to be left out of California state penitentiaries because of falsified evidence. During the course of this trial, though Nancy Grace did not utter one peep about it, but it was clear in the evidence that was adduced, that was televised, that was considered by the jury, you actually saw Furman plant evidence, to wit, the bloody socks at the foot of the bed. You also heard testimony that one of the problems, remember, if it does not fit, you must acquit. The manufacturer of the gloves did a hand tracing of everybody's hand. The glove was his size L. OJ wore a size 2XL, and the person involved that wore the size large was Furman. Also, there were some questions about the DNA evidence. The expert who taught everybody involved said the DNA evidence did not implicate O.J. Simpson. And in fact, there were 96,000 people in the LA County area that could have donated the sample. The sample was reflective, the blood sample that was analyzed DNA-wise. He said the DNA was typical of someone from the Northeast Mediterranean area, perhaps from Sicily. And we also heard outside the jury's presence the testimony from Sicilians who were in the Federal Witness Protection Program, who said they assumed that the killings were a message to them to remain silent. They were identified as having dated two of Nicole's sisters. So we got the organized crime element put smack in the dab of this. We got the Bronco that was supposed to be filled with blood. Well, the people that towed the Bronco in and stored it for LAPD were clear in their testimony that they went over the vehicle with a fine-tooth comb. There wasn't a drop of blood in it. There were 4 padlocks to which they did not have the keys that secured the vehicle. When those locks were open and they were directed to tow the vehicle some 11 days after they took it into their custody, the Bronco was full of blood. They actually caught a lab technician transporting 10 cc's of OJ's blood down to the scene of the crime. They caught it on video. And he admitted it under oath that his job was to taint the scene with OJ's blood. You got all of these kind of things going on. So the jury stayed out about 30 minutes to take a smoke and fix a cup of coffee. And the reason they stayed out so little time was they had no evidence that implicated OJ. He supposedly had a cut hand, but then you brought in the co-pilot of the plane he was flying on, who testified he came out and had OJ sign the flight log. You had the gentleman who sat next to him for the 4-hour flight to Chicago, who said they played blackjack the whole time and he didn't have any cuts on the hands. You got somebody who was a bellhop in the hotel who did testify that said when he got the information that Nicole died, he crushed the glass in his hand and cut it. You got several witnesses who testified that OJ dropping the kids off caught her on the couch doing guys, and his thing was, for God's sake, why do you expose the girls to this? Let's go find somebody with an apartment.
Nicole had a history of doing drugs and
she owed every major drug dealer in the LA area a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and the bottom line is Goldman just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Other thing, I saw the evidence in the evidence room. Nicole and Goldman had their throats cut from ear to ear, and somebody reached in with pliers and pulled their tongues out. That's a Colombian necktie. And OJ didn't do that. My brother got called as an expert in knife killing, and his evidence would have been, had they put him on the stand, that OJ being right-handed wasn't the killer. Whoever the killer was stabbed Goldman and Nicole through the aorta and the top two chambers of the heart, both of them the same identical wound, and he was left-handed. There were no wounds from defensive struggles. There were two sets of footprints out on the scene in the dried blood. One was a size 9 shoe, and the other one was a 10.5, and OJ wears a size 12. And there was no evidence in this case to put OJ in there at all. But this sleazeball kept talking about there was, I guess, to make things interesting. She was supposed to be down there every day, but I talked to
Nancy Grace.
Yeah, but I talked to
Let me bring this up.
Well, hold on, let me just put this in. I talked to the courtroom personnel who were there, and they said she'd show up at the end of proceedings every day asking what went on.
Okay, let me bring this up as well. It says this is Mary Ann Gerchus. She was an eyewitness who saw 4 men running away from the condominium where Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were killed. Because her testimony will further prove that LAPD planted evidence, the LAPD trumped up some bogus charges on her so that she would not testify. So I want to bring this into the fold because listen, the media, the media hasn't changed, it actually got worse. The media tries to paint the picture of guilty because it sells newspapers, it brings in the ratings. This is all about money. You had whether it's Dartman or Marsha Clark worried about their careers because this
Darden,
the
colored boy.
Right. So they're worried about their careers. Listen, if we can convict OJ Simpson, what is that going to do for our careers? That whole spectacle was a money grab. And now you implement race into it, right? Because when they read the verdict, and I do have a clip here that I want to bring up. When they read the verdict, the media intentionally showed clips of people gather around throughout the nation, right? Black people and white people, and they did a compare of the different reactions.
This was in the 1990s, and what's going on is 30 years ago, things were a lot different than they are now. Now, people talk about white supremacy and all that today, but most of the folk that were talking about this 30 years ago were too young to be aware of the differences in things. Now, I know.
I'm gonna play this. This is only 30 seconds. Let me play this. Play this.
The jury in the above entitled action finding the killing of all James Simpson not guilty of crime.
Yeah, I remember that. It was American black folks who got confident in American justice.
So the thing is, wait a minute. So the thing is, what the media did that intentionally, but
yeah, I know. And see,
to this day, there are a lot of white people who are upset that he was acquitted.
If the white people had actually watched the trial, they wouldn't be so upset. They're upset because there was one reporter there supposedly every day throughout the whole places. It was that sleaze Nancy Grace, and she is a reprobate, and she got her career launched. And you can next see her. There was a case down in Florida, and she was actually out on the people's yard for days at a time hollering about they need to get rid of the Fifth Amendment because the people had a right to have their curiosity satisfied, and that was more important than somebody's right to be silent. I caught her in a thing. We were on Larry King Live. It involved a homicide at a college, and she had gone out and bribed the witnesses the day before to give her some information. So she was trying to act like she had discerned this herself. So I jumped her and I said, you went out and bribed the witnesses, didn't you? Yes, you did. She said, that's how you got this. So tomorrow we're going to hear when somebody comes forth. So you're going to make a false claim that you figured this out on your own. So it was that kind of thing. I know she was a rookie. She hadn't been a prosecutor for long, and she got discovered in Hollywood. So she was going to run with that. I'd been doing it at that time. How many years had I been doing that? That was 35 some years. So 30 years when I ran into her on the Larry King thing. So it's kind of like, okay, what do you think you're doing here? You stop trying to front this off. See, some people are just plain unscrupulous. So you can thank that woman for most of the divisiveness that came about in this country. See, I talked to Johnny Cochran. I met him back in 1966. We both had gone to UCLA. Yeah, I'm telling you about it now. Yeah, I met him. His phone number, old one anyway, he's dead now, is still in my contacts. I don't throw anybody's number away when they die. Bad luck. But anyway, his strategy was this: to get the case put in one of the districts in Los Angeles where there were likely to be a significant number of minority jurors in the pool. Also, to get jurors old enough who had been exposed to LAPD during the course of their lifetimes, who would view what LAPD did with a grain of salt. See, the Los Angeles Police Department had a long history of being involved in organized crime and illicit behavior. And if you grew up black in Los Angeles, California, you did not trust LAPD. You had a lot of new people who were freshly out there who trusted the police implicitly, but not those who grew up. So he got a predominantly black jury, still had some white people on it. And what wound up happening was the jury just sort of looked at it and said, where's the proof? There's nothing here. I talked to some individuals who were there present during a lot of the proceedings, judges and lawyers and such, and they just said the jury got so disgusted with what the prosecution was doing that they were rolling their eyes and looking away from them in disgust. Darden, black, and Marcia Clark, female white, gave one of the most incompetent displays of trial lawyering I've ever seen. I was an adjunct professor about this time, and if I recall correctly, a lecturer, and I would use tapes of this performance to show how it was not to be done at a trial. Objecting to everything to the point where the trial judge is going, Mr. Darden, will you sit down? Do not stand up again. Do you hear the court? But you sit down, Mr. Darden. Miss Clark, you too. I mean, it's like, objection, that's been ruled on. Sit down. Objection, sit down. In other words, trying to obstruct the jury from hearing your lack of evidence. And, it got to be, people were looking at them like, have you lost your mind? And it's like you saw Johnny Cochran. Johnny Cochran had been with the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and at the time they hired him back in the 60s, they needed some black people to give them credibility because we had had the 1965 uprising, and it was becoming apparent that the black citizens of Los Angeles were no longer going to passively play that shit that was going on. So they brought in Johnny Cochran. He was a smart man, brilliant man, and he put on some outstanding performances, and then he flipped over to the defense side, and he had done his apprenticeship. He knew how to deal with the jury, select the jury, final argument, presentation of a case, organization of a defense presentation. He knew it. And when it came about, you didn't have a rookie in there like you have so many times today. And what we see in the courtroom isn't Fannie Mae bullshit. It's the real deal. And he worked that jury beautifully. And after he got through, everybody in America wanted a black defense lawyer. So it was good for the reputation of the people. And unlike some of these punk ass cowards we have now who are scared to take on Goliath, he knew what a lot of defense lawyers knew, which is if you wanted to get the rep so you could build up clientele, you took on the baddest ass opponent you can and whip him. And that's what he did, or at least make yourself look good. He did. And we saw that case, every shred of it, and what the American public saw, if they paid attention to it, was nothing. Now, what was happening is I noticed this. Everybody black I knew at the time was hanging on this case. They were looking at it on break. They were recording it. They were looking at it at home. The white people were relying on, not all of them, but some of them were relying on the reports they got from Nancy Grace because they just took it as something else. They didn't realize that one of the foremost trial lawyers in America was on the case. They were thinking Bailey, and they were thinking Kardashian. By the way, that's where the Kardashian name came up, as a defense lawyer, not the clown show.
Yeah, her father.
And they were paying attention to the fact it was in there. They didn't realize Johnny Cochran was what he was. I was telling people, you better watch this guy. This guy is a monster. See, he is the one. And see, he and Willie Gary were friends. I knew Johnny Cochran and Willie Gary. Willie Gary holds the record for the largest jury verdict in the entire history of the United States of America that survived on an appeal. It was $980 million 40 years ago. It involved some funeral homes. And that stood up on appeal. And he also, out of the 10 largest jury verdicts in American history, he's got 4 or 5 of them, and 4 or 5 of the largest 10 settlements in American history. So why somebody would want to go retain someone who's never even tried a case to go settle a big time case, I don't know.
Let me
Still there, and he and Johnny used to hang around, and I'd go in and I'd absorb everything I could from them.
Let me bring this into the fore about Johnny Cochran, because he died way too soon. I believe it was brain cancer or brain tumor. But
he also had a lot of stress too.
Yeah. And but before he passed away, he was working on reparations for Black Americans. And I believe
the first time he had worked on them, by the way. See, since I've been in high school, this is the 3rd go around. So 2 of them, Johnny Cochran got in on the last part of one of them and got in the middle of another one. I had a roommate that went to law school, Theodore Egan's, and he was involved in that through the UN as an attorney. So this is not the first time.
Right. But my point that I'm trying to make here is with Johnny Cochran is, going too soon. And I believe had he not died at a early age that he did, I believe that we probably would have by now have won a case for reparations for Black Americans if he was able to live to see that through.
I talked to him about it. His problem is he was beginning to adopt this thing that a bunch of us did, that the only real way to see this through was to get some leverage on the Black caucus so that they would do something about introducing legislation.
Because he knows strategy.
Yeah, but you see, the point is you wanted to use the courts to get leverage on the legislative body, because going through the courts was not likely to be productive because there are such things as statutes of limitations. You see, the problem is if you were made a slave, somebody did you a personal wrong. And the problem with that is throughout this country's history, the statute of limitations to do something about a personal wrong has varied between 1 year, 2 years, and 1 and 2 years. And they've got extensions on that allow action to be taken now when it deals with women's rights that go back, where they have grace periods where you can go back 25, 30, 40, 50 years. So the deal is perhaps get an exception on one side to get a legislative change in the statute of limitations, but then the problem is who are you going to sue? A governmental entity, which would come up flat against sovereign immunity, and you'd have to get a waiver of that sovereign immunity on a legislative level, because you would have one hell of a squawk if some of the succeeding, or shall we say, descendant corporate entities in the United States wound up getting exposed to liability. And then you got another big problem if you're trying to go back to corporations, is because you really didn't have the process of incorporation developed until the 1870s.
All right, I don't want to go too far into the
I won't, but the problem
I'm just talking about Johnny Cochran.
Yeah,
and he was working on a reparation plan, and he passed on. So I just want to make this announcement. Phone lines are open if you guys want to call in. I open up the phone lines for 1 hour before I get to the phone line. So call in now so you could get in queue. But I want to highlight the super chats, and I want to say thank you to everybody that sent in super chats. If you have a question, I always encourage people to send it via super chat because I cannot read the chat throughout the show. Thank you, Mr. Gumbo, aka Hot Grease. Can you please answer Judge Joe's question? Which question was that? He never asked me no question, so I don't know. What question was that, Mr. Gumbo? Thank you, Kathy T. Just wanted to say I think you are both great. Love you both. Love you back, Kathy. Charlie, did you ever meet Johnny Cochran?
Yeah, I was just saying I knew him personally.
No, you answered it already.
When I'm saying I knew him personally, this is like
you said that
about 1966. This is like bar conferences, hanging out in the bar.
Okay, yes, we got to move on. Halamel, thank you. Says thank you, Judge, for telling this information. Hello, beautiful Dana. Hello. And Kim, thank you for explaining what white folks don't want to hear. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't care if you white people get uncomfortable when I talk about race or talk about something you don't like. You need to look within yourself as to what makes you think that just because you don't like it, we are not supposed to talk about it or have a different point of view. Do you realize that is white privilege that you are executing or whatever? So yeah, honey, we're gonna talk about it because people gotta understand how the media plays tricks on you mentally to believe and think one way when it's really not. So yeah, call in. Okay, I do see some IQ. Let me test the phones. Let's see. Hello. 325. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Man, I can barely hear anybody.
Yeah, give me a second.
Hello?
Give me a second.
Hello?
All right, say something again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, what is...
Oh, okay. All right, this is Rob.
I'm sorry. It's
Can y'all hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, this is real bad. Hey, Judge,
I can hear you.
Have you ever read the... Okay, Judge, have you ever read a book by a gentleman by the name of William C. Deere on that OJ case?
I have not.
Oh, well, in that book, he outlines with evidence that he did that it was really OJ's son that committed the murders, and OJ was covering for him.
No, it didn't have anything to do with OJ's son. What was going on is you got two sets of footprints in the blood size 9, size 10.5. You've got some DNA leading to a geographic locale that had a lot to do with 2 people in the federal witness protection program who testified remotely. You've got the fact that the homicide was committed by 2 professionals, and it certainly wouldn't have been OJ's son. He's not into cutting throats from ear to ear and taking a pair of pliers and pulling a tongue out through the gap. He's not into a precise stroke by a left-handed person. He was right-handed, wherein the upper aorta was pierced and the 2 upper chambers of the heart were damaged identically on both individuals. That's the mark of a professional killer. That wasn't what happened. Also, if it had been the son, we wouldn't have seen Furman on camera planting evidence. There is a video clear, well lit at the foot of the bed. It's 14 after 1 a.m. in the morning. The security squad that's in there to video the premises so they can determine if LAPD detectives or cops stole anything from this rich person's home. All right, you see the foot of the bed. There's no socks. About 45 minutes later, the video crew is still in there. 15, 20 minutes later, they're still in there, and they ask somebody what he's doing. He identifies himself as Furman. They tell him he has to leave. About 5 minutes later, they say, "Sir, didn't we tell you to leave?" And then the camera pans up, and through 2 open doors, you can see Furman standing at the foot of the bed, fiddling around, looking sheepish, and they say, "Sir, you have to go." Then the next thing you see after Furman leaves on the clock is some bloody socks at the foot of the bed where you just saw him standing, where 30 minutes before that, there were no bloody socks. You see things like that happen.
Is it your opinion that that's what happened?
Yes. Somebody
professional hit.
See, here's the deal. Nicole had 2 sisters. The witnesses that did not testify in front of the jury but testified at trial were in the federal witness protection program. They were dating 2 of Nicole's sisters. They testified that they understood that the hit was a warning to them to keep their mouths shut. Otherwise, these 2 sisters that they had a close personal relationship with would die. So that's what they were talking about. So that had nothing to do with OJ's son.
Okay.
Also, the thing about it is like I said, there were 5 senior detectives involved. Furman was the only one that did not go do penitentiary time for planting evidence. That was the Rampart scandal. Look up Rampart scandal, LA. 128 people got freed from prison for being victimized by planted evidence that these 4 detectives and others were responsible for planting.
Well, you know, it's funny that this kind of news just doesn't get out there. I mean, this side of the story doesn't get out there, and
I don't know why. I've been putting it out there for 20-some years. Everybody that was involved was putting it out. My brother, who is look up Clifford Stewart of Los Angeles, the bodyguard for the stars and great martial artist. Look him up and see who he is. He was Muhammad Ali's personal bodyguard, Larry Flint's bodyguard. That's Hustler Magazine, Mr. T's bodyguard, Wesley Snipes' bodyguard for the...
What was his name?
Clifford Stewart of Los Angeles, the bodyguard for the stars. Okay. He is, Black Belt magazine called him probably the most dangerous human alive in North America for 15 years. That's why the state of California called him as a witness. He went over all the evidence. And they had an animation they were trying to do with the reconstruction. He totally disagreed with it, so they never put him in front of the jury. But he was my brother, so I knew him. So and we went over it. Also, there was a Veronica McBride / Macbeth. I recruited her to UCLA Law School years ago, and she was the chief administrative law judge for LA County Superior Court at the time. She gave me a tour of the evidence room. We went over everything. So, yeah.
Already. All right. I got to move on to another caller.
Okay. Thank you, Dana, for thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You. All right. I don't know if it was his phone or maybe it's my earpiece. I don't know, but I listened to it on my phone and he was coming in clear on YouTube. But all right, let me try the next caller.
I heard him okay from whatever I'm on. I don't even know.
951. 951.
951. You're on.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Hi. My name's Christine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I want to know is, at the time, I remember this very clearly.
Can't hear you.
We loved each other. It was a great time. Anyway, we were all wondering about the abuse that Nicole went through. That was OJ looked like he was the abuser. So that kind of fueled it even further. So do you have any memories on that?
Yeah, the testimony and evidence on that was this. His first ex-wife said he never lifted a hand ever. What happened with Nicole was a junkie. She owed every drug dealer in West Los Angeles and in Hollywood a whole lot of money. She was always getting wasted. She got in a lot of fights, and people testified they'd been present when OJ confronted her after catching her doing sex on a couch with somebody. And the thing was, hey, why are you exposing the children to this? So nobody ever saw him lift a hand to her. I knew him. He wasn't that kind of guy. He was a real peaceful guy, football player, one hell of a ball player, hard running back. And
I loved him. I thought he was great. But
they
I just
tend
really
not to be
for
that
clearing
kind of
that up
person.
for me a little bit.
Go ahead, caller. Caller?
Hello?
Yeah, go
I hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna end now and let somebody else talk. But thank you, Judge Joe Brown. I love you both. I'm so glad I found you about a month ago, and I know. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go. Have a great night. And hey, God's got it. And Joe, if OJ is innocent, and I'm kind of swaying in the middle, maybe he is, then God's got this. And the perpetrator who did this, he's gonna be judged by God.
Well, here's the thing. In an American criminal case, the case has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And the problem with this case is, although Darden and Clark and Nancy Grace brought it up a lot, there was no proof. They kept alleging it, and Judge Ito got on them about, where is your proof about this kind of misconduct? They had none. They couldn't call a single witness who had actually seen this kind of thing. They had no medical reports. They did have stuff that after they broke up, she had the problems that somebody who is a drug addict tended to have. So whether or not he was responsible for those things, nobody put in any iota of proof that he was responsible for that. But Nancy Grace said he was, even though there was no proof, folks. So there you go.
I thank you, caller.
Well, Nancy Grace isn't the judge all be all. Good night, Judge. I think I'm gone.
Thank you, caller. I don't know what is going on.
I can't hear you.
Wait. You can't hear who?
You.
What do you mean you can't hear me? I'm right here.
I hear you now, but before it sounded like
I gotta probably turn my mic up. Maybe that's what it is. I have to turn. Oh, maybe that's what it is. I have to turn my mic up.
I hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know. Something with the phone lines. I want another person to call in. Because I have it through the Rodcaster, through the Bluetooth on my phone. It is a slight delay. So that's what I'm saying. Let them finish talking before you interject, because they can't hear you interject because it's a delay.
I couldn't hear them.
Huh?
I couldn't hear her.
Well, that's I don't know.
I mean, I
All right,
didn't
let
know.
me I see a caller right here. So let's try this. Let me try this. I see another caller. 717, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead. You're on the air.
I wanted to make a comment on Judge Joe Brown. He really shed some light on the case that I never knew of before, and I wanted to thank him for that. I think I made the mistake after the case had happened of reading Mark Furman's book, Murder in Brentwood. Kind of, it skewed me, I guess, from what Judge Joe Brown has been talking about, against OJ. But the recent evidence he's been showing, been mentioning on the show, has really made me look at it in a different way, and I want to thank him for that. My other thing is, the other point I want to make, Judge, is that a man taking off in a Ford Bronco, it's just bad optics. It makes it look like the man is guilty. Could you explain that? Like, why would he would do something like that? Because I guess in the time frame from the murder when that happened, I think it was a span of 5 days. Maybe something in that time span had changed him to the point where he thought there was no hope here with the LAPD being the way they are. He thought he didn't have a chance. Maybe he took off in the Ford Bronco, thinking that no matter what they thought, he'd be guilty. It just, the optics look bad. That's the whole thing. I wanted you could comment on that.
Well, probably the best comment came from his friend who was riding in the Bronco with him. And he just said OJ was in love with Nicole, and he was real shook up about it, and he just wanted to talk things through. So he wasn't going to run anywhere. Sure. Now, the other thing is that most of my friends who were into criminal defense work or prosecution, we looked at that, and the probable cause that we saw kept pointing a finger at Furman. There was a lot of probable cause against him. He was there at the scene of the homicide less than 5 minutes after he occurred, and he was not at work that day. He was not working as a policeman. He was supposed to be 27 miles away, but yet he was 5 minutes away from the scene of the homicide. He showed up and climbed the fence into OJ's backyard, supposedly to see if anything happened to OJ right after he left the scene of the homicide. And he was the first person on that scene. And there were a whole lot of other things, like we saw him on video plant evidence. So it's kind of, and then we found out, interestingly enough, about Furman. On at least 11 prior occasions, he tried to date Nicole and had actually been over to her house, her apartment, to try and take her out. Wow. So he had repeatedly visited her. So the consensus was, the people who heard the whole trial, was, why didn't they charge Furman? He's trying to date her. He'd been over there. He was there immediately after the offense. He had no excuse for being there. And he went over and he was at OJ's house, and it looked like he planted that glove out in the bushes under the leaves that he found, by the way. And you see him planting the bloody socks at the foot of the bed. It's like planting evidence at the scene of the crime immediately upon it happening, and having had a prior romantic interest with Nicole. What's going on here?
That's quite interesting. I never knew all these things. I really appreciate you shedding light on this.
And see,
a lot of these facts I never knew before.
I'm not biased about this one way or the other. I have presided over many a death penalty case. Hell, I've signed death warrants setting execution dates for people who've been convicted. I tried 42 first-degree murder cases as a defense lawyer where death penalties were demanded. So, I mean, nothing new for me. And I'm just looking at it in a detached fashion. Like I'm the one, by the way, who was the last judge on the James Earl Ray case, and it would have been my conclusion James Earl Ray did not kill Dr. King. Actually, I think the FBI recruited the hit team and provided the weapon and the ammunition, but that's another thing too. But see, I have no dog in this hunt. So I'm just looking at it. At the time I saw it, I was a criminal court judge, and I'd been on the bench about 4 or 5 years at that point in time. And what I was looking at was out of I looked at as a professionally curious about what the hell I'm looking at.
Right. Well, I appreciate your show when you was in syndication, and I appreciate your impartiality.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Take care.
Who was next? Okay. 479. 479. Can you hear me? Okay, they hung up.
Cuatro, siete, nuevo.
Let's see. 510. 510. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're on the air. Go ahead.
I just had a question for Judge Brown. Tell us about your opinion on when OJ was strip searched by the LAPD, and they found no marks on him other than the scratch on his hand on his one finger.
Scratch on his hand, according to the testimony adduced at trial, was a cut. There was a witness to the cutting. It was a busboy in a Chicago hotel who said he had just delivered something up to OJ's room on room service when OJ heard about it, and he had a glass in his hand that he crushed that cut his finger. So we saw captured on video, it was an Asian lab technician who brought 10 cc's of OJ's blood back to the scene under what was admittedly an attempt to contaminate the scene with OJ's blood.
Was that Mr. Fung?
Yes. I believe that's the name.
Yes, I recall that name. Thank you for the question. The answer, Judge.
All right.
I appreciate it. Okay. And let's see. Few more here. 609. 609. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes. You're on with the judge.
This is Sherry. Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes, Judge. Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Hello?
I hear you.
Oh, okay. Hello, Judge Joe Brown and Dana. My question to you, Judge Joe Brown, is about the civil case.
I'm listening.
Why did he lose the civil case based on the information that you're sharing with us tonight? I just didn't understand how he got sued. Nicole Brown's family and the other gentleman who was killed the night with her. Their family sued O.J. Simpson in civil court, and he was what did he? He lost. They won a large amount of money that he had to pay because it was something about the death. They felt that he had something to do with their death.
Well, let me just stop you. I get the idea. Why did he get found liable in the civil proceeding and not guilty in the criminal proceedings? Well, several reasons. To start with, there's a different standard of proof. In a criminal case, you have to have a unanimous jury verdict showing that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. All right. And a civil standard is more likely than not by preponderance of the evidence. Second thing that occurred in here was whereas OJ's defense team for the criminal charge managed to get a neutral venue in terms of the jury pool. LA had 13 districts at the time, one central with 12 surrounding. They got put in a mostly all-white venue where it was almost an all-white jury this time on the civil side. Next thing, quite frankly, the civil defense team was not nearly as good as the criminal defense team, and I saw a lot of awkwardness in the civil proceedings that were completely absent in the criminal defense team, which was first rate. It looked like OJ had run out of money with whom he was able to hire the civil defense team. So for a number of reasons, I think there was a reaction against his acquittal in the criminal trial, and somebody was going to punish him. So the standard of proof being different in a civil case versus a criminal case, you got what you got. So
And you said, Judge, he ran out of money
he ran out of money, yeah.
for a good legal defense. Okay.
Yeah, he had enough left over, but he spent a lot of money. That ranged from Bailey to Cochran to Cardassian to a whole lot of pretty good lawyers that were involved in this trial. They dotted all of the I's and crossed all the T's. It was a damn fine defense. The investigation was first rate. They just ran out of money. You see, right now, that's a problem. And you see them doing this with Donald Trump on a bigger scale. It's American law has morphed over the years into a device where if you can't get them put in jail because you can't prove that case, you can bankrupt somebody or drive them to a situation where they cannot afford to defend themselves. It is very interesting in terms of the ultimate effect because to an extent, if you are impoverished and you live in an area with a good public defender's office, you can get for free a hell of a legal defense, much better than most people can afford. So that's what happened with OJ here. His civil defense team was not what his criminal defense team was.
Thank you, caller.
One more thing, Miss Dana.
Okay.
Miss Dana.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Judge Joe Brown. I just want to just wrap it up. I just think it was a shame that after he paid all that money to the attorneys in the criminal case, that they did not try to at least represent him in the civil. I just think they just, like you said, he was a cash cow. Even though he was acquitted in the criminal, I just thought it just feel bad that they didn't represent him in the civil as well. And one last thing, I think that
let me say something about that.
I think they gave him a raw deal.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just say this. You have to exclude Johnny Cochran from that. I've got Mr. Cochran's phone number in my phone, still do. And we talked, and it's not like he did not offer advice to the civil defense team. I can't say for certain, but it looks like they rejected it. So they were on their own. And
yeah, just let the caller
these
finish
people
up.
do business.
Let the caller finish up. Go ahead, caller, finish up because I have to get to other callers.
I agree. I just want to say, I think that even though he was acquitted in the criminal, I just think that the American, us here in the United States, punished that man all these years. He was acquitted. We cheered him on. We had his back. Once he was acquitted and then he lost the civil case, I think he would have did better if he lost the criminal and just served his time, because to me, they just, just destroyed. We destroyed. I'm not saying I didn't agree with the attack on being O.J. Simpson being targeted because I thought he was innocent. But the point is, we just dogged that guy, that man, O.J. Simpson, for years. That's all I want to say. And thank you for the time, Miss Dana. And
I'm going to add.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to add one little thing, not to your point, but what ultimately happened to him. That thing in Vegas. He was at Vegas, and some people who engage in certain questionable things were grateful for all of the money that he had won them by running up all these yards, and they were betting in Vegas. They gave him a bodyguard crew. And he was walking through this flea market in one of the casinos, and he stumbled onto all of this property of his that had been stolen from his home. One of the pictures was an 11 by 14 portrait of himself and J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, and Hoover had signed it. It was several of his Super Bowl rings and a lot of other his personal paraphernalia that was engraved over to him, so it was no question as to what was going on. Well, they went back to get it, and they were accompanied by somebody that O.J. thought was with his bodyguard friends, and his bodyguard friends thought was with him, and it turned out nobody knew this guy. He just sort of jumped into the crew. So when things got difficult, nobody was armed except this guy, so that turned what wound up being just a disturbance into an armed robbery. So this person, O.J. didn't know. This person that his unarmed crew did not know, was the only one with a gun, and that got all of them in a situation reportedly attempting an armed robbery. And what they were trying to do is get O.J.'s property back that had been stolen from him. So that's why he wound up doing that time that he did do. Now, I was very disturbed about that judge. It was a she. She was an idiot, and she was literally on her bench in her robe drinking a 7-Eleven Slurpee that was labeled as such, with her back turned to the defense and the presentation of exculpatory evidence. So she was determined, and she said she was going to get him for getting away with murder.
Right. And let me just say this. Thank you, Southern Belle, for doing a great job tonight. You don't put the number in the chat anymore. I have enough people in queue, and I'm just going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in queue. So the 5 people that are here are going to be the last 5 callers. So please don't put the number in the chat. You could stop putting the number in the chat. So let me get to the next caller. $317.
Hello? Yeah,
Yes.
that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I wanted to ask the judge. Thank you guys for all the fantastic journalism and all the great work the judge is doing. That was magnificent. I didn't know what to believe about this case, because nobody really explained the evidence like you do. If any good thing that came out of this OJ being free, could you explain what you think that might be? Because a lot of black people say they didn't know whether he was guilty by the verdict based on the condition of the justice system at that time.
It was almost 30 years ago, and times were different. And what happened is you saw for the first time a truth other people knew. Some of the best defense lawyers in the country were black, and Johnny Cochran really put on a show. And it also restored a lot of confidence in the American system that black people had lost because they saw justice work. You saw other people who were emotionally distraught by the verdict. And to give you a parallel so you understand it, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but you don't sound like you're in your 50s or 60s.
I'm 66.
What?
I'm 66. Thank you.
Okay, 66. All right.
Yeah.
You're about 10, 11 years younger than me, so you were around then. But I would say this. The comparable atmosphere is very much like you're seeing right now with Donald Trump in terms of those who are
Right.
firmly convinced he ought to be up under a jail and those who are convinced he's being persecuted. One of the appeals that Donald Trump is beginning to have to black men is he's beginning to look much like the perception of what was happening to O.J. Simpson suggested back 30 years ago when all of that was going on.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, hey, somebody is being identified with being treated in the wrong way. It doesn't go over well.
Thank you, caller. Hello?
That answers your question, I think. I hope. Or it's commentary.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, see, while we're taking these calls, it's like a test run through as well because I'm comparing, I'm contrasting. It's a delay. Do I like this setup? So yeah, so just bear with me and bear with this system. 254.
Good evening. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Got a couple questions there for you, Judge Joe. Back on that Mark Furman thing, I was sitting here and I was like about to bust my gut laughing at you how you were saying how 4 of those detectives got in trouble and Mark Furman didn't. So my first question is, why come with that trial, all the things that came out about what Mark Furman did, why come he didn't get in trouble for perjury and using the N-word and planting evidence? Why come he didn't get the charges were ever brought against him?
Great questions. Why not? You might take into context that LA had some problems going on. Remember the 91 situation, 92 situation with Rodney King?
Rodney King.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm old enough for that.
That's all in the background. See, that was LA was a tinderbox.
Mm-hmm.
LA was what now? Say that again.
Tinderbox. In other words, it's ready to go off again. So maybe somebody wanted to exercise prosecutorial discretion and not get any more embarrassing to the system than they already were. Check out the Rampart scandal. Rampart's precinct over there off North Hollywood Way, over near Tommy Burgers off Ramparts, the one that was over there.
Thank you, caller.
Okay, I have one more question. I had just one more, please. Also, with the civil trial, because the lady had brought up the civil trial, that big judgment that Ron Goldman, that the Brown and the Goldman family won. Now that OJ is deceased, can Ron Goldman's daddy and the Browns, can they still pursue OJ's estate to try to get any kind of money for that judgment?
It depends. It depends. It depends. See, generally in America, damages for personal wrong do not survive the alleged wrongdoer. Depends upon where the funds come from, and whether they've been acquired before or after, and what's happened. I haven't been keeping track of it, whether any bankruptcy proceedings or Chapter 11 protections were sought. So I don't know.
All right. Thank you, 254. Thank you so much. I'm gonna get to the next one. 813. 813.
Hello?
One other last comment. The
Yeah, hello?
children of OJ and Nicole would have any interest that Nicole had merge into them in one sense under the law. So with that, go ahead.
All right. 813.
Hey, Judge, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you.
Yeah, good show. I had a question about Faye Resnick. From my understanding, she was Nicole's roommate at the time. What do you know talk about her drug debt? I believe it was, I believe Nicole was killed by mistaken identity. I think Faye Resnick might have been the target. So if you can expand on that. And,
That may be the case.
Great show.
That may be the case. I would just offer that outside of the jury's presence, but televised, you had the remote testimony of two witnesses in the federal witness protection program. Their faces were shadowed, so you could not hear them. They had voice synthesizers operating, so you couldn't recognize the voices. They testified that it was their impression that it was a message being sent to them. They dated two of Nicole's sisters, and they were of the impression that they were being told that if you talked or kept going with the way you're going, something was going to happen to your two loved ones who are blood kin to the deceased, or at least one of the deceased factors. The other thing that came out somewhat later, and let's not get into it, but there were words out on the street that when this went down, they did not realize that that was OJ's Nicole, and OJ was a friend of certain people because of all of the money that they'd won betting on him in these gambling wagers that were going on through Vegas.
Thank you, 813. Thank you. Okay.
I don't know if possible, but that wasn't what I was listening to or hearing.
213. 213.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Dana. Hi to the Honorable Judge Joe Brown. I love your show. I just want to say that, and I also want to say, I remember this trial when it was going on, and I'm 51 years old. And one thing that stood out with me that I never understood why they didn't investigate, the neighbor that lived next door to Nicole's condo, he was from Guatemala. And I vividly remember her stating on the news the morning after that she seen 4 Italian men running across her lawn the night that Nicole was murdered. And I don't know what happened to the lady, but they never said anything else about her, and I remember that.
I brought but real quick before the judge speak, I brought that up earlier in the broadcast because Tariq, she posted the picture of a woman, a white woman, who said that she saw 4 men, and apparently the LAPD brought some Trump charges up against her so that she won't or couldn't testify.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. If you listen to what I've already recounted, the DNA expert that taught everybody said the DNA was consistent with somebody of Northeast Mediterranean extraction or from Sicily. All right. You've got two people who were hooked up with an organization that has Sicilian connections, Italia,
right,
who testified they thought the whole thing was a message to them. I've already advised that my late brother, Guru Clifford Stewart, late of Los Angeles, the martial arts master, was called as a witness on knife killing, and he has testified. Well, his information was that on the immediate scene around where the killing occurred, there were two sets of footprints in the dried blood. One was somebody that wore a size 9, and the other one somebody that had a size 9.5 shoe. OJ had a 12. So you've got at least two people. You've got somebody of Sicilian or Mediterranean extraction on the scene. You've got a blood sample that supposedly comes from somebody there because there was a potential injury one of them possibly suffered. And that would put this kind of situation in place.
All right.
So what you're talking about, not inconsistent with two people being a lookout, two people during the actual homicide, there being an organized crime involvement in the whole thing, with the purpose of that being to suppress the evidence that might have been given by two former members of an organized crime organization who had a romantic relationship with the sisters of Nicole.
All right. Thank you, caller.
Thank you, and God bless you both. Thank you.
You too. All right. 1, 2, well, I see 3 more. Let's see. 570. 570.
You there?
Yes.
Hello?
570.
We hear you. Yes.
Dana, you there?
I hear you. Talk.
No, he got too much stuff going on. Like, please don't call into the show on a speaker. Please don't call into the show on your and if you're in your car and you got the Bluetooth on or you have the show in the background, because it's throwing everything off. I'll pull him on hold and get back to him in a minute. 479. Everyone called in it was quiet background. I appreciate that. 479.
Hello, Miss Dana. Hello, Judge Joe Brown. I want to just give you guys props for your content. I'm not really on the OJ stuff or nothing, but I really give you props, Judge Joe Brown. I like how you come down. I only knew you from the Judge Joe Brown show, and it enlightened me and let me see a lot of things. I'm 51 years old, and I like your direct contact with the young black men because they need that. Some of us don't understand that, the mothers and everything. And it's like, how can a mother raise a man when a man should raise a man? But I like your contact. And Miss Dana, this is my first time seeing you. I've only seen you with Kwame Brown, Judge, but I'm going to be following Dana from here on out. And that's just what I'm saying. Just trying to give you love and props. Give you your flowers while you're here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're on every Monday and every Thursday, and on Tuesday we usually have an egg space in the early evening that stretches on for a while.
Thank you, caller.
Yes, sir. I love you guys' content.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you calling in. 901.
Hey, Dana. Hey, Josh. This is Chief Cook. How you guys doing?
Chief, how you doing? Long time no hear.
Hey, how are you?
Long time. Missed old phone calls back in the day. Hey, do you think we're gonna finally see Sydney and Justin talk interview like that interview soon? You think they're gonna have interview? We never heard them from throughout the trial and about to grade up. This is happening. So you think they're gonna find out an interview and they're gonna talk about this?
What? OJ?
Yeah, the kids. Yeah, Nicole kids. They never did any interview on TV.
Well, they
weren't.
What were they? 9 and 11 years old at the time. What would they know about it? 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I never considered it. I imagine if it's typical for a typical family, they got well sheltered from the events involving mom and dad, which were kind of drastic. So
yeah, they never done TV interview. I know they never done any TV interviews. I know they did a couple of magazine interviews, but now they're not on TV. So I'm thinking some network on trying to get them on TV.
No telling what they'll do.
All right, Chief Cook, you got too much noise in the background. It's too much noise in the background. So
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
But I appreciate you calling in, because I need to start wrapping it up.
I have no answer for you, Chief, because I just don't know. I hadn't considered that they'd go try to ferret them out and see what they had to say about it. Might not be interesting.
Yeah, I know. But we'll see again, guys.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, let's try this again. 570, and you're the last caller. 570.
Yeah, Dana, you up? Can you hear me? Dana, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I hear you.
All right, Dana, just comment in. Let me explain something to you. All right. Me and O.J. Simpson had the same agent in Hollywood. Okay. Now I'm going to explain to you what I was told that happened. Okay. Nicole had owed big bucks in her. So she used a lot of drugs, mostly cocaine. She owed the drug dealer a lot of money. Okay. Now she refused to pay him, and they kept calling her to tell her to pay them. Okay. And she basically was like, that Karen attitude, like, no, it's like, leave me alone. Because OJ had stopped sending her money. Because they was broken up at the time. Okay? Now, so she basically was like, so what? All right? So you keep messing with me and want to call the cops. So when she said she's going to do that, they stopped calling her. Then all of a sudden she got killed. That's what happened. Okay? It wasn't no Italian people running across the lawn. It wasn't OJ Simpson, because he wasn't even there. And my boy, what's his name? What was his name? The dude that got killed with her, what's his name?
Rod Goldman.
Ron Goldman. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You see what happened? So you have to understand about the drug world. You deal with people with money that has OJ's or people like OJ's let's say fame. All right. You don't drive down the street to the drug dealer. They deliver it to you. Okay. Nicole knew that. So she always got her drugs from her dealer. Okay. So when they sent them over there, they took out Nicole, but Ron Goldman was there.
I'm sorry.
And you can't leave no witnesses.
Okay, let me interject. So you saying your agent told you this?
No. OJ told me this.
OJ Simpson?
We had the same agent. Yeah. Okay. We had the same agent.
So,
See,
I'm sorry. Wait.
OJ. I'm the same height, same weight as OJ was at the same time.
Stop. So you and OJ Simpson, okay, I had the same agent, so you knew him personally, and you had a conversation.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
I knew OJ died yesterday.
Let me ask you the question. You had a conversation with OJ while he was on trial, or when the trial was over?
No. This was after the trial. This was before he got arrested for taking his own stuff back. Okay. This is
so you called
that.
up OJ Simpson. You called up OJ Simpson on the phone.
No, I didn't call him up. We was in the office. You understand how it works in Hollywood. It's not like you just call people.
What was the name of the agent? What was the name of the agent?
Gary. It was what's his name? Gary. It was his name was Gary. He was my agent back then.
Yeah, you don't know your agent's name?
No, he's not my agent anymore. He hasn't been my agent for almost 10 years, almost 15 years now.
You forgot your agent?
His last name.
You forgot, okay.
You think I'm playing with
what
you,
was the agency company? What was the agency company?
Oh, man, I can't remember the name.
You don't remember the agency company you were with?
I had
okay.
Judge, because I had several agents.
Judge, do you remember the agency company you were with?
My agent's name was Barry Weiner.
Okay. All right. Thank you, common man.
Okay, I can't remember the agent I was with.
All right. No, that's okay.
You think I'm playing with you, right?
No.
I know. I told you what happened, right?
Okay. All right.
It don't matter because he's dead now. It don't matter.
Thank
All right,
you.
it doesn't matter.
Thank you. I appreciate you calling in with that information.
Sure.
Thank you.
It is not important. It's not important, Dana. Dana, it's not important. Don't worry about it.
I'm not. Thank you so much. Appreciate you calling in.
Incredible.
I can't. And that's the last call for
I
the
don't think anybody would dispute that Nicole Simpson was a junkie.
So I guess
And it's been all in and out of this whole thing for 30 years that she owed most of the major drug dealers in West Hollywood and West LA. And by the way, she was known down on the Boys Club. That's like a boulevard for them. So I mean, okay.
Everything he said, you kind of already said, but I guess he wanted to let people know he spoke to O.J. Simpson on the phone. No, he spoke to him because he saw him in person because they had the same agency. So he got first-hand account.
The other thing is that this had nothing to do with any other thing other than her owing drugs. Well, let's put it this way. 2 people did the killing. 2 other people seem to have been present to stand guard while the killing occurred. A whole lot of trouble going into play here for a dead junkie just killed behind some drug dealings. What the storyline was is that because she was a junkie, nobody realized her connection with OJ, and she happened to be a convenient conduit for showing certain somebodies that something else was going on. That was one of the theories of the defense, by the way, that was the motive for the killing by whoever it was that actually pulled it off.
Right. So one more thing before we get up out of here, I want to share your favorite person, Mark Lamont Hill. So he tweeted, O.J. Simpson was an abusive liar who abandoned his community long before he killed 2 people in cold blood. His acquittal for murder was a correct and necessary result of a racist criminal legal system, but he's still a monster, not a martyr. It's a oxymoron.
Well, let me make a statement. Lamont Hill is a punk. So anyway, it's not surprising what he comes up with. Sissy boy, go on about your business.
Right. But it's an oxymoron because you saying that he was an abusive liar, who abandoned his community long before he killed. So you saying that he killed him, even though you saying that the acquittal was justified because the criminal justice system is racist. That makes no sense. And
His punk ass doesn't know how to make sense. So excuse me, allegedly punk ass doesn't know how to make sense.
And I appreciate what Tariq said. He said somebody auditioning for a job at a white company.
Lamont Hill ain't even auditioning for a white company. They don't like slime too much either.
Matt Wallace is another one on X. He put, in 1994, Nicole Brown was brutally murdered. O.J. Simpson got to live another 30 years before dying today from cancer at age 76. Nobody was ever convicted of her killing, but everyone knows who did it. Rather than focusing exclusively on him, let's take a second to remember her. Why? She died 30 years ago.
She was a dead junkie. So anyway, she brought it on herself. Next point is, excuse the hell out of me, he got acquitted. Next point is the evidence implicated somebody else. Next point, you don't know a damn thing about it.
Right. And one more thing, Mark Lamont Hill, O.J. Simpson is dead. Do not make him a hero or a martyr.
Why not? He got martyred. It was a disgusting display of wrongdoing and the excesses of mainstream media that seized upon a charlatan, a.k.a. Nancy Grace, to promote her lying sleaze into prominence. If she had reported it accurately, we would not be in this position today. So, yeah, there is a martyr to the development of the new mainstream media model. Please.
So the Football Hall of Fame president, Jim Porter, he released a statement. He said O.J. Simpson was the first player to reach a rushing mark many thought could not be attained in a 14-game season when he topped 2,000 yards. His on-field contributions will be preserved in the Hall's archives in Canton, Ohio. And that's the thing. I think, but it is a shame that, no matter what he did as a football player, he will always be remembered as, the man who got acquitted from what
He
was
got acquitted. Damn it. Meaning not guilty. What the hell do you want?
the murder trial of the century or something? They were
No, it's not. It wasn't
they were coining that. They were trying to coin that whole trial debacle. So, but it's a shame that
you know what you actually saw. You saw a damn fine defense team up against some assholes who were prosecuting, who had used to running over everything they ran into because nobody could afford a defense. When they finally ran up against a good defense, they looked like a bunch of damn fools. Well, two damn fools anyway. And they were on top of some criminals who wound up doing penitentiary time. Meaning those detectives from LAPD that dastardly were planting evidence on people, 128 of whom had to be released from prison because they got framed.
It says
that's what happened.
O.J. Simpson became a football star at USC. Arthur James Simpson, born July 9th, 1947 in San Francisco, California, changed how athletes, particularly African-American athletes, were viewed in a mainstream well before he became a notorious figure. Simpson's rise started at the University of Southern California, where he was one of the greatest college running backs ever. He enrolled in USC after attending City College of San Francisco for 2 years and finished second in the Heisman Trophy voting his first season. Simpson crossed field 64-yard game-winning touchdown run against UCLA that season is still one of the most famous plays in college football history. In 1968, Simpson's senior year at USC, let me finish. In 1968, Simpson's senior year at USC, he won the Heisman Trophy. Heisman Trophy organization tweeted, Heisman Trophy Trust mourns the passing of 1968 Heisman Trophy winner O.J. Simpson. We extend our sympathy to his family. So
I saw it.
In Buffalo, NFL stardom in Buffalo. Simpson NFL career started slow. He looked like a potential bust through the season. Then in 1972, the Bills hired coach Lou Saban as head coach and helped him turn Simpson into a star. Simpson was All-Pro in 1972. In 1973, Simpson had one of the most iconic seasons in NFL history, becoming the first player to rush for 2,000 yards in a season. He finished with 2,003 yards, which became one of the most recognizable numbers in sports. He was named NFL MVP. Is still one of the most famous single-season performance by an NFL player in NFL history.
I'd put him in there with Jim Brown, Tank Younger, and Deacon Dan Towler when it came to running backs.
His 1975 season, in which he had 2,243 yards from scrimmage and 23 touchdowns, isn't as celebrated as his 1973 season, but strategically better. 5-year stretch, Simpson was one of the greatest running backs in football history. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1985. His induction speech, he thanked his second wife, Nicole. Why you ain't thank the first wife, honey? That kicked off that career.
Well, he did what he did. He was in love with the woman, it seems. USC Trojans had a history of running backs. Their immediate predecessor before that was Mike Garrett, who cut up on the football field too. They had some pretty good running backs. I was at UCLA, so we were crosstown rivals. Interestingly enough, at one time, USC and UCLA were on the same street, Vermont Avenue. Vermont Avenue now has a high school known as Manual Arts High School, which is located where UCLA used to be before it moved out to Westwood. But he was a good guy. I knew him not well, but I knew him enough to be sitting down in the same house with him a time or two while everybody was playing cards and engaged in revelry, talking about what was going on in the world back then.
Right. All right. So listen, this was a good show. And I put a poll up. Do you believe OJ did it? Innocent, 62% says innocent, 37 guilty, 709 votes. Thank you, first of all, to everybody that donated tonight. Love you, love you, love you the most. Thank you to everybody that called into the show. Everybody in the love room, i.e. chat room. Special thank you to Southern Belle. She is a great, great, great moderator. And thanks to everybody that's out there listening. Please share this video, hit the like button, and yeah, let's get to 100K subscribers.
I feel kind of weird about this. He was 4 days older than me. So
what? So what are you trying to say? Oh, this was a quick question, and I said it earlier.
He's dead, I'm not. So many of
Okay, so this is a question I put earlier. I said we should learn how to celebrate death, and and where did the fear of death come from? Like, people are afraid to die, right? But that should be somewhat celebrated because we are ascending, I believe, to something higher, especially if you are a believer. If you believe in Jesus Christ, then why would you be afraid to die? Or why would you not celebrate when somebody die? Because their soul will be with Jesus. So what is it about death that people are just
not afraid of dying, but I kind of like it here and now. It's fun, exciting, adventurous, and I don't give a damn about pie in the sky when I die. So anyway.
Well, you said you're going to Valhalla, so wouldn't you know?
Well, it doesn't make any difference. I'd rather stay where I am right now, but you gotta go. So a whole lot of things I'd rather not do, I had to do as an obligation. And some things that I wished I could have done, I didn't do because it was not wise to have done those things. So, get a little here, get a little there. But anyway, I enjoy my life. It's fun, adventurous, it's thrilling. I've had a good time.
Well, listen, I don't think it's nothing wrong. I need to check scripture on that day. There's nothing wrong with celebrate. There are a lot of cultures that celebrate that when somebody die, and it's better. I think it's better than to be depressed.
Hey, what's gonna happen is gonna happen. Ain't nobody getting out of this bad boy alive. So it is what it is.
Right. Also, before we get up out of here, another important factor to bring up. Judge O'Brien, why I ordered barbecue sauce, honey? I got the chili and original and the chicken season. That chili barbecue sauce, it is spicy, but it doesn't burn you. It's not uncomfortable, but it's a kick. It's a double kick of spice.
Well, what I do, since I invented this stuff, or at least co-inventor of it, I take the spicy and I put 1/3 of it in the chili juice that comes in these yellow green chilies that you get, the real hot stuff. And I might mush up some habaneros and take a little of that, put in, or some jalapenos to add a little kick to it. So it gets, and put some crushed red pepper in there if you want to get it so it's authoritative.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's safe for most people.
Go to jjbbbq.com or go to Amazon and just type in Judge Joe Brown barbecue sauce. It's delicious. It's delicious. We have a late super chat here. Jonathan Majors should play OJ in a movie. Oh, I think that'll be a good casting. Yeah.
Does he look like him? I don't think he looks.
I think it's some similarities. I think he could get away with it. Oh, you think she'll play OJ in a movie?
You know who could get away with it? What's the guy who had the wig on or the permed hair?
Terrence Howard.
If he was younger, yeah, he could play an old OJ.
You think, but he's too light.
No, he's not. OJ was.
You see that picture of OJ right here above you?
Yeah, I met him.
Terrence Howard is your complexion or lighter.
I knew him. Terrence Howard's about the right complexion.
No, OJ is darker than Terrence Howard.
Nah, he's not.
Yeah, he is.
OJ kind of pale.
That's a picture of OJ right above you. No, he's not pale.
I know that, but that's OJ is kind of pale. I
No,
knew
he's
him from
not.
Yeah, I knew him. I mean,
So what? You're colorblind.
This is sitting. No, I'm not colorblind. This is sitting in
Why were you when I
Lloyd? This is sitting in Lloyd's kitchen.
When I
talking
OJ,
stuff. The boy done darkened up here.
No, he is not light skinned.
He's not anything other than paper bag brown, is what you call it. So
no, Terrence Howard looks white. This is
he
Terrence.
doesn't look white. He doesn't look white. About the same.
He is yellow. No, he's not. What is wrong with you? No, he's not.
It's about the same. That ain't looking white. What's wrong with you?
That's not the same complexion as OJ. What is wrong with you?
Look. Majors doesn't have any of the features that OJ has.
Who's light?
He is light.
Terrence
Somebody
Howard is
put it
light
up there.
skinned.
Yeah, he's light. So is OJ. OJ's paper bag brown.
OJ Simpson is not paper. What are you talking
paper
about?
bag brown. Bring out your paper bag and put it up. That's what we called it.
Terrence Howard is not paper brown.
Wait a minute. No, I'm talking about OJ is
see the
paper bag brown. So is Terrence Howard. Here, I'm gonna do this. Hold on.
No, it's a picture of Terrence Howard right here. That's not the same complexion as OJ. I'm sorry. I think all of y'all are
Here is a
colorblind.
brown paper bag.
Stop.
Here is a brown paper bag.
Okay, and Terrence Howard is lighter than a brown paper bag.
It's about the same shade.
No, he's not.
All you gotta do is change
No,
the
he's
lighting.
not. No,
Change
he's
the
not.
lighting and you got it.
No, he would not.
Change
He
the
would not
lighting
make
and you got it.
No,
Change the
sorry.
lighting.
You want him to be blackface.
Majors does not
He
match
would not make a good OJ.
Majors does not match it.
Jonathan, let me pull up Jonathan Majors. Yes, he would. Yes, he
No,
would.
it wouldn't.
Yes, he would. Like you always saying something.
Majors doesn't match it.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. That's
Yeah,
not
he
anything.
does.
That's not anything close to OJ.
Yeah, it is.
No,
I'm
it
sorry.
ain't.
Majors
Look
is
at
more
the
closer
nose.
than
Look at
Terrence
the lip.
Howard.
That's not anything close.
No, yes, it is.
No, it ain't.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Shit, give me that dark. Give me that. I need that brown and dark skin.
Oh,
Yeah,
they put makeup on him.
that dark and lovely.
They put makeup on him.
Huh?
They put makeup on him.
No, well, no damn black. That's blackface. No. All right. Anyway,
well, they do it.
great show. Oh, I didn't acknowledge people on X. Everybody that's been watching on X. I keep forgetting. I'm sorry. Love you guys on X. Shout out to everybody on X. All right, Judge. Last words. Say goodnight.
Hey, it's been a week. One more. Do what you do. So if you have to go out the door and check on out, you can go out with a shout.
And with that, we'll see you on Monday. Bye. Everybody enjoy your week.